Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of what will hopefully become an ongoing series of Revenue Cloud roundtable sessions where I get together some of my Revenue Cloud friends and some of the best architects in this whole space in the Salesforce industry, and we talk about what's going on with Revenue Cloud. What's the state of it today? What's going on in the partner ecosystem in general as it relates to Revenue Cloud? And in this very first roundtable, we're going to talk about three big things. Number one, we're going to talk about Salesforce Revenue Cloud at Dreamforce 2024. There were a lot of exciting updates that happened. I found myself very excited in the roadmap session about the winter 25 release, the spring 25 release, and even the future roadmap of the product as it starts to coalesce and form a more comprehensive solution. And it looks as if Revenue Cloud, the new one, is going to be far more robust than CPQ and billing was or would have become, which is an exciting thing. And we'll get into that. We'll also talk about the Winter 25 release, and maybe JM can lead part of the discussion there since he already wrote a blog post about it, isolating the Revenue Cloud specific stuff. Questions come my way recently about Salesforce Revenue Cloud careers and what the future looks like for those. We've got a new product launching. We still have 6,000, 7,000 customers on the old products. We've got Logic. We've got other solutions that are out there in the world. What do I do with my career? And we're going to get into that after this. So let's do a quick round table or a quick round of introductions around the round table. That's a mouthful. And introduce ourselves, give a quick TLDR biography of yourself, and then we'll get started. I'll begin. For those who don't know me, my name is John Garvens. I got my start in the Salesforce ecosystem as an administrator. I joined the dark side and became a consultant focusing on Salesforce CPQ, which is what I've been doing ever since 2017. And I was even doing CPQ before that as a Salesforce administrator, Salesforce consulting partners. I worked at Salesforce for a little bit, and now I'm out on my own as a solo Revenue Cloud architect at Garvens Consulting, a company I started back in January of 2023. So it's hard to believe it's almost 2 years old. JM, want to go next?
All right. Hello, everyone. JM for short. Jean-Michel for the French inclined people watching. Been in the Salesforce space for 8 years. Actually started in pre-sales, interestingly enough, which was, I think, looking back, a great way to start to get exposed to a lot of different stuff on platform very quickly. Then moved on to another gig, another consulting partner where I was doing more consulting implementation projects. And then at that partner, I also did pre-sales again. And in 2020, COVID, decided to go out on my own. So it's been 4 years now. Having fun, mostly in the quote to cash space, but I've done extended beyond CPQ and billing, and done also revenue recognition with Financial Force or Certinia now mainly. So yeah, thanks for having me.
I didn't know you've been in business that long. Yeah, I'm glad to have you here, especially with all the cool videos you've been putting out about Revenue Cloud. Be sure that you subscribe to the Cloud Update on YouTube. If you feel so inclined, subscribe to my channel as well. Subscribe to my shit. That's going to be my catchphrase. Wayne, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm old and I've had a lot of careers. I started out in the nonprofit space with Salesforce. This happened about 11 years ago. I was fundraising. The nonprofit I worked at had Salesforce and didn't really know what they were doing with it. I had done some various kind of database projects before that. And so I volunteered and I got really into it. And the more I got into it, the more I wanted to do it. And the more they wanted me to just shut up already and get back to fundraising. So I decided to make the leap into full-time Salesforce and have not looked back. So I worked in-house for a design company for a couple of years and built a really massive system for them, which is where I got the CPQ start, but I built natively like inventory and logistics system for them as well. And then I moved into the consulting space. I've been with a few consulting firms since then. I'm at Simplest now.
Nice.
And
Simplest is an OG in the CPQ space. That was where
it
I got my
is.
start as well. Yeah.
It is.
I don't think we were there at the same time though, if I
No,
remember. Okay.
no, I started just this year.
Okay.
Started this year. So, yes, I like it a lot. It's great. I have had a lot of time between projects, so that's how I have managed to dive into RLM. And
Yeah.
I have days like today where I'm not feeling well, and I
Mm.
just think like, I'm a little tired of butting my head against this, learning this new thing and not being able to figure it out. And then I have other days where I'm diving into it and
Yeah.
I'm figuring it out and it's really fun.
For the rest of us, you're creating some fantastic documentation, which is deeply appreciated by myself. I'm sure JM,
Yeah,
Matt, you probably
absolutely.
benefited from this as well. So Wayne Salazar on LinkedIn, I'll include a link in the show notes and stuff. I guess it's show notes. Is this a podcast? I don't know. I don't even know what I'm doing, but it's fine. But yeah, Wayne's put together a lot of guides on how this thing works. And as we all work together to try and figure this out, he's going to be one of the people to look to. Matthew Coker, my work wife on a previous project, or work husband, I guess. Say hi.
Thanks, John. I'm Matt Coker. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for 8 or 9 years now, I believe. I got my start right around the same time as John. Good work friends back in the Simplest days, back when Simplest first got started up, and
It was
worked
such
on
a
a couple
tiny
of
windowless office. Oh my God. It was so small. Like 10 people crammed into a 5-person office.
with no windows.
No windows at all.
So I've been a handful of other consulting partners as well. My primary focus has been Salesforce CPQ. Worked on a few billing projects, nothing significant as John, but been in the weeds a time or two on those, but mostly focused on CPQ. I think about 3 or 4 months ago, I kind of took the same steps as a few other of my peers on this call and went out on my own and the implementation side. So spreading my wings a little bit right now. It's been
There's
pretty.
a lot of stuff a lot of stuff to learn, and it's been really fun because I mean, once you get to a certain point with the CPQ stuff, you're going like, okay, another CPQ project, but then now it's like, oh, I got to learn like, oh, how does that work? Now I got to get some systems and processes in place and all this other stuff, especially as I look to bring on other people potentially in the future. Thanks for those introductions. It was really helpful. Make sure that you connect with these folks on LinkedIn and subscribe to the various YouTube channels and stuff. That's a good way to stay up to date on all of this. But without further ado, let's start diving into the agenda for today. Again, we're going to talk about Salesforce Revenue Cloud at Dreamforce, the Winter 25 release notes, and then Salesforce Revenue Cloud's careers, current and future. This is the garvensconsulting.com website, and here I have a post that I made of a review of Salesforce Revenue Cloud at Dreamforce 2024. I essentially wanted to scrape together as much stuff as I could find, starting with this shameless plug for myself, absolutely shameless, and take a look at that thumbnail. It looks absolutely horrid.
It's so
It's fine. Yeah. Such a good word. I would not have thought to use impish. Damn. I'll have to find a way to caption that, like John looking impishly to the side. The video has a table of contents here if you want to know what's in it. I linked to Jean-Michel's The Cloud Update channel as well. And then I have, starting at the top, the various resources that I was able to pull together, starting with the main keynote. Now, if you're really interested in knowing the details, it's on the Salesforce YouTube channel. I want to say it's about a 45-minute video or so. This will tell you everything that's on the coming roadmap, so make sure that you go there. As far as other content, I went into that events portal and I saw that, hey, here are the sessions that you went to. And I thought, oh, well, that's convenient. So what I've done here is I pulled together the Einstein created bullets, the summaries of what was discussed in these various sessions that I attended, along with the presenters and links to their LinkedIn profiles, which took a lot of work, but I hopefully created a resource that will benefit a lot of people. So as you're looking to learn about Revenue Cloud, go ahead and connect with these people on LinkedIn. These are the product managers, the product marketing managers, et cetera, who are on these teams. Some people that we know as well. Matt, we've got Swapnil here at Simplist. He taught me how to create lookup price rules. I love Swapnil. He's fantastic. So as you go through this, feel free to look at all these different sessions. We've got the various product managers, et cetera. And then as you go down, that's pretty much it on this, but there's a lot of sessions and a lot of content here to look through. But we can start with overall impressions of Dreamforce this year. I'll go ahead and share some initial thoughts, and feel free to chime in after this, everybody. First of all, I was thrilled to see that Revenue Cloud was even mentioned at Dreamforce. Not only mentioned, but had more Revenue Cloud sessions than I have ever seen in the past. I went to more sessions at Dreamforce than I've ever gone to combined in this Dreamforce, just because there was finally Revenue Cloud content. So I was really excited about that. I went to tons of sessions and saw tons of people. The most exciting piece for me about that was seeing the lines out the door, down the hallway of people trying to get into these sessions. Every single session I saw was full or standing room only, or lines going out, and they had to say, sorry, nobody else can go in because it is simply too full and we don't have any more space in the room. So I thought that's really exciting, and I was glad to see that. The roadmap session, I definitely encourage you to watch the roadmap video. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out, and yeah, it's new software. New software has bugs. Bugs get worked out. It'll get better. As a mentor of mine said, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not an oncoming train. So I'm excited about the future of the product because it's far more comprehensive as a solution. Rather than having to get a bunch of different products, we're now going to have one big thing to rule them all. One ring to rule them all, I guess we could say, if we want to start stealing metaphors from other parts of life. And then I saw lots of Salesforce friends, and that was basically my takeaway. So I hung out with Salesforce friends. We tried to do a Revenue Cloud crawl where we met for a couple of sessions and then went to the Dreamfest afterwards. I was hoping it would be bigger and there weren't very many people, but my solution next time is to create a pirate flag, that Jolly Roger flag with Revenue Cloud crawl across the bottom, and then lead the way with a pirate flag, because we're in Revenue Cloud, kind of the pirates of the Salesforce universe. Matt, you were also at Dreamforce. What did you see and notice that stood out to you in this year's Dreamforce?
Yeah, like you said, I was super excited by how many people were attending all the events. It was just crazy. You couldn't even find a seat. Like, even if you got inside the events, like, you just stand up and put your headphones on and be entertained by all the successful implementations and the different companies that have benefited from CPQ in the past, and what their experience was, and sharing that experience with all of us was fantastic. Hearing Logic present all of their updates about what they're bringing forth and how they're making Revenue Cloud a better system for those who have more data-driven type sales actions. So it was just great to hear all the presentations overall.
Yeah, and you mentioned specifically CPQ and billing. There were sessions, if you are on those legacy products, there were some sessions that were related to both of the original CPQ and billing products too. So it wasn't just about the new product. There were also presentations about using consumption schedules and Salesforce billing and a couple of other things where there were some cool takeaways.
Yeah. And even advanced approvals, making their sales process a lot smoother without having to manually approve things outside of the system. Salesforce had their presentation as well, where they were going over all the changes they making in their roadmap, even internally. So that was pretty interesting to hear.
Yeah, those sessions were really cool too. So for those who don't know, there's Project Lotus is going on at Salesforce. Org 62 is the 62nd org ever created on the Salesforce platform. That is the instance that Salesforce uses to run Salesforce. This thing is a monster. It has the biggest lead assignment rule I have ever seen in my life. If you printed it out, it would probably be like 6 pages long. I found out I had view setup or whatever when I worked there. And so I looked around a little bit. This is a monster. Well, Salesforce, after 25 years of using Salesforce, is going to re-platform the whole thing. And Org SF is the new org, and Project Lotus is what's going to be the next probably 3 to 5 year project to get from Org 62 to Org SF. And they had some sessions there around the Revenue Cloud part of it, quote to cash, and how is Salesforce going to move from its current quote to cash solutions. And they have more than one, with all these different acquisitions, each acquired company has its own stack related to quote to cash. And so what is it going to look like for what is it, 80,000 person software company that's been using Salesforce for 25 years and building out all sorts of stuff to cut over to a new platform? I'll be honest, I'm glad I'm not on that project. I would be so stressed. Kudos to the people who are making this happen. Those sessions are worth a watch as well. You were saying, Matt?
Yep. 2 more things. One is, I've been on projects for the past couple of years where I had to work completely remote. I haven't been on site in years due to COVID. So being there at Dreamforce in person was awesome to meet some of my customers who I've never met in person before. And it's just so fun to have this idea of who they are and what you see on a Zoom call, and then you meet them in person, and it's just so cool to, just have a conversation face to face, and talk about the success of your implementation, about the, all the good things you've accomplished.
Yeah.
Fun part is guessing heights, and then you're surprised one way or the other. Right? You're like,
is that what happened?
This one must be small.
Yeah,
I think I already knew you were tall, but I know I got surprised by meeting some people.
It's like their LinkedIn profile or the photo that they use in Zoom, but they're never on video, is 10 years old, and then they're like, hey, hey, John, and you're going, who are you? We've been talking for 6 months. Oh, yeah, of course. Jean-Michel or Wayne, I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of the sessions on Dreamforce or heard anything, any comments to add to that?
Quickly watched some of the highlights. I guess I'm curious about the advanced configurator, and both of you mentioned Logic earlier, and now it's interesting that Logic is pushing out a CPQ tool, and Salesforce is pushing out an advanced configurator.
Awfully convenient or coincidental, isn't it?
Yes.
And Logic is having some of their own pricing and things too. They're going more omni-channel. They got e-commerce capabilities. It's good to have a working knowledge of a lot of different tools, I think, because if you're only, I think a gap for me early on in my expertise and the development of it was just only knowing Salesforce CPQ. This is all that exists on earth, but you got to be realistic about this and understand that large companies especially are going to have multiple tools. It's not just going to all run on Salesforce or whatever. So you have to be at least conversationally fluent in many different products, processes, systems, etc., to be effective, not just as a consultant, but as an internal stakeholder who's working for a company.
Really interested in figuring out Logic and how it's going to fit into all of this with Revenue Cloud. I have not wrapped my head around it.
Yeah, same.
It just seems like you kind of have to do this big, complicated implementation in Revenue Cloud, and then you also have to do this big, complicated implementation in Logic on top of it, which just somehow can't be. Like, please, somebody tell me that's not true. And why? And I guess the why is, if you're using the legacy CPQ and you're stuck to that, is kind of, as far as I have figured this out, then maybe you want to do this Logic implementation to kind of make it work seems like if you're going to go to all that trouble, you probably ought to just go the Revenue Cloud route, because that is, to me, what is so elegant about Revenue Cloud is that, you're going to have this flexible system for dealing with products and features and options and bundles and pricing and all of that is going to work seamlessly with a commerce site. But not everybody's going to be able to make that switch in terms of, the end user companies, right? I mean, I have this whole tie into the design industry, and they're on Shopify and they like Shopify and it works great for them, and they're loath to consider moving to a commerce site, and there really is at this point there isn't a compelling reason to do that unless they really have the resources to also bring logic into the picture.
What would also be interesting is, what if Shopify started to develop direct quoting capabilities? And what if Shopify made their own portal and self-service functions? I mean, that's something they could maybe add to their product roadmap. They've already got the e-commerce, and they have a massive footprint in the e-commerce space. I think after Amazon, Shopify is one of the number one platforms or something like that for e-commerce.
They do have a limited quoting capability.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can definitely put together a quote, and you can have up to 3 options on a product.
Oh.
So you could buy a rug in blue, red, and gold, champagne gold.
Okay.
And you can, make that selection, and the pricing can be different. And on the back end, like on the front end, you're making those selections, but on the back end, you're going to have product in blue, product in gold, product in red as separate products. So it's very much like a commerce site.
Yeah. You basically have a whole bunch of flat SKUs for every potential combination of something that could be sold. Very interesting. I think that that'll the conversation about the elegance. I think that's a good time to start to pivot to the second bullet of the agenda, which is the release notes, because we started off with Salesforce Revenue Cloud. I'm just pulling up my notes. We started off with Salesforce Revenue Cloud really being focused on getting to parity with Salesforce CPQ first, and then Salesforce Billing, and then expanding from there, where the future of Revenue Cloud is going to extend far beyond CPQ and Billing ever did, because we're starting to get more complex with orders. We could talk a little bit about dynamic revenue orchestration and how that works, and these other items that are going to start to get onto the roadmap. JM, I'll pull up your article here on your website, wherever I put it. There we go. So Jean-Michel wrote a quick synopsis of the release notes for Revenue Cloud in the Winter 25 release. You can go to thecloudupdate.co and find this there. Do you want to walk us through this really quick and give us a starting point for the conversation?
Yeah. So usage-based products, right? We all thought that was missing in V1 of Revenue Cloud. So it's interesting that it's now on there. I will say that I know some people have gotten it working. I'm not one of them. It requires a lot of record creation.
Well, I just find the documentation so thin.
Yeah, I guess that's the add-on issue, right? You need to create a lot of records, and also there isn't much documentation on what you actually need to create and what order they should be created on. So it's a bit, and it's expected, but
How similar is it to building consumption pricing and Salesforce Billing? Is it the same where you got your consumption schedules and tiers, and then
there's additional records you need to create beyond that. So it's more records than what you needed to do for CPQ usage billing.
I see. Okay. So it sounds like there's probably a lot more coming in that as it ripens. Does that sound
and
right?
It's not compatible yet with billing, which also came out with Winter 25 yet. So I imagine that's going to be coming out as well.
That's that invoice management, right?
Invoice management, yeah.
Have you done?
So I made a video on this one. It's fairly, so far, it works fine. I mean, I haven't done a full implementation, right? I got end-to-end on it, and I got invoice generation working. I was happy about that. I haven't tested yet tax integration or anything like that, but it does seem to offer similar flexibility we had in billing. Fully manages volume better than billing did. That's on billing projects that I worked on. That was an issue, right? Anything above 100 lines is getting dangerous with Salesforce billing. So, and it seems they're using data pipelines, and everything is batched in the background. So I'm hoping this leads to better performance with larger scale, quotes, orders, and invoices.
Okay. I think you also had a video about ramp deals, or were you starting that?
Yeah, I did a quick one on REM deals. We touched on REM deals. And I think what stuff, I guess, not only REM deals, but I think about everything else, is we've been living in this CPQ space, right? And we've had the pain of, some stuff in CPQ. So we're getting a new product and we're like, this should work and solve all the issues that we had with the previous product. And then we work with REM deals and it doesn't actually solve what was wrong with MDQ. So we feel like we're in the same place, but I think where there's hope, obviously, is, this is going to keep getting better, right?
Yeah.
Getting updates.
I mean, there are hundreds of engineers working on this product around the world. So the amount of investment that I've seen from Salesforce on Revenue Cloud is something I've not seen almost in any other product. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of the Salesforce products that have been released in the last, say, 10 years, a lot of them come through acquisitions. One of the first times that's happened, Slack was purchased and Quip was purchased, and name insert tool, specific Salesforce product going back to, I don't know, Service Cloud was built in-house, but there's a whole period where things started to be like, hey, we have this new product. Yes, but you bought it. Somebody else built it. So it's interesting to see that develop as well. How's advanced approval?
It is coming from a previous. Sorry, Wayne. Go ahead.
What I'm finding in this release is that it's like you were saying, usage-based products. That the pricing, it's not working yet with billing. It's like in the last release, the dynamic revenue orchestrator is not yet working with orders, and so you have these different pieces where you're hoping, like you were saying with ramp deals, and it's not. And then because they're still working on it, and then you have like all of these pieces that are being worked on in that fashion that then need to connect to each other, and those connections are not yet happening. And so what it seems like they're doing is making all of us UAT testers, and it's like I'm realizing, like, okay, my expectation was this is GA, this is all like ready, it's ready to go, and it's not yet,
Yeah.
And I think they are relying on us early adopters to kind of help them think through all the use cases and figure out where some of the problems are.
A project you do where that last 20% takes 80% of the energy, because there's so much stuff that you just didn't think about. And you're building, or the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, where you build one half and then you get up to the end and you realize, oh shit, we're off by 4 inches. So you're pouring water in the freezing winter on one side, trying to get it to contract just enough to get the other. Coker's smiling because he used to live in St. Louis. But this whole, some of it is like, really? We didn't think of that? But then other parts you're going, yeah, that's a challenging situation to try to engineer. And I don't know how trying to herd all of the cats on a project of this magnitude or product of this magnitude has got to be a hell of a challenge. How does advanced approvals look so far from what you guys have seen? I haven't had a chance to mess around with it yet.
So when you create a flow now in Winter 25, if you have Revenue Cloud, you've got one new type of flow that you can create. And it's, two actually, because it could be either record triggered approval orchestration or auto-launched approval orchestration.
Okay.
So record triggered, I guess I don't see yet what the use case is, right? Like launch I mean, I see it, but it's not something that I've ever had on a project. Like as soon as this happens on a quote, launch the approval. Typically, I don't know, in my mind, you're used to like, hey, you want to submit for approval? Click submit for approval. That's what happens,
Sure.
which would be the auto launch, but it's available. So it's cool, right? It's one more option.
My assumption was the use case of like any discount up to 5% is automatically approved. So you could do that. You could just have it marked as approved.
Yeah. Okay. I have had clients before, and it got contentious because they were saying, well, why do I have to click submit for approval? It should just be approved until it's not. And I'm going, yeah, but the system needs to know when you're done with the quote. And they're going, yeah, but I shouldn't need to click submit for approval. And it was this whole back and forth because in my head, thinking architecturally, I need some sort of systematic trigger to say, I'm done. And then once the system knows I'm done, it submits for approval, goes to my boss, goes to finance, whatever it happens to need to do. But they're just saying, yeah, it should just read your mind and know when you're done. What? That doesn't. I don't know how you do that.
Submit for approval. And now you can lock records in advance approvals and the new ones. So that's
really?
That's fun. Yeah. Because that was always an issue, right? And you had to play with record types and visibility and all that stuff. Now you can simply log the record right away.
I will say that dynamic forms helped a ton with that because then I duplicated my sections in the page layout, and then one was read only, one was editable, and all this other stuff. But yeah, that created dynamic forms was really cool. I really like that, the dynamic buttons and all of that on the more just general Salesforce admin stuff.
Yeah.
It's a really good point that you made, though, about kind of knowing when you're done putting the quote together.
When is the user done?
Because if you are going to set up a flow to automatically approve anything up to 5%, then in essence, you're going to potentially be calling that flow like a gazillion times before you're done putting the quote together. And since you're being charged per call, that is maybe not a good thing to configure.
And that's a good point, because one of the things, I'm not an API guy, but I need to get a fundamental working knowledge of APIs now, because my architectural decisions could potentially influence the price that the customer is paying for the software massively. If I'm a lazy architect and I do not architect an elegant, simple solution that uses as much as needed, but as little as possible, then that could have a negative impact on my client. So to take care of them and their budget, in this new world that we're operating in, where everything is API first, and we do have a consumption component to this, it would be wise of all of us to get a solid understanding of what triggers an API call that is rateable, and how we can reduce that number to the amount that we need, but nothing more than what we need. So that it'll be an exercise to figure out that line.
And that's still a question that I have, right? Is a licensed user triggering API? Well, E is going to trigger API events, but do they count against your count? Right? Because you're already paying $200 a month for that user, right? List price.
Sure.
So are you also consuming API credits, right? Because it makes sense if I'm on a website or an app and I call the pricing API of Salesforce, I'm consuming API credits, which makes sense, and I'm going to get billed for them.
Yep.
But for example, I've built a component to clone quote line, quotes and quote lines, like clone with related. We're so used to it in CPQ, it wasn't in there in Revenue Cloud. So I was like, how do I get this working? So I built this, but it does call the API. I'm a licensed user. Am I consuming credits, or is it included in my license? I don't know. And licenses come with a preset number of events, right? Sorry, Wayne.
Well, my understanding is you're consuming a credit or being charged for overage or what have you, just for every...
A licensed user is supposed to come with a certain number of events, right? So I guess at least it's covered to an extent, right? But to your point, John, if it is counted and billed against, and you design poorly and consume too many, then you're going to come out with ability at the end of it.
I imagine too, like most of it, and I need to dig deeper into this myself so I understand it. But I imagine as you have more users, you also get a bigger bank of credits to draw from and all that other stuff.
That's how it was explained in the initial training, right? It was, one user comes with, I don't know, I don't remember the number, 500 credits a month.
Yeah.
And then you can buy extra on top of it.
Sure.
Right, which is, they have this instant pricing toggle on the quote. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to want to educate your users not to use that all the time.
Which I don't trust users.
Which you don't trust. Of course. It's sort of like, why do you even have it there?
Yeah.
Or if you have it there, then we need to have like some sort of control over who gets to use it and when.
I mean, I tended to be on the verge, like on the border of totalitarian dictator and just control freak when it comes to system administration. So I don't want the user, I want to make it impossible for them to do the wrong thing. I want to keep this as efficient and elegant as I can to keep the price low. We're investing a lot in this, and it's going to help us make money, but we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and all that stuff.
Well, is it just about keeping the price low? I mean, the system to be intuitive enough for the user to know what to do without doing the wrong thing up front in the first place, right?
Fair point.
It's like building validation to prevent them from doing something that they shouldn't even have the ability to do.
Yeah. Right? Validations are so frustrating. Just hide the thing so they can't do it wrong. Yeah. Guided product selection, guided selling, how does that look? Ooh.
We all have opinions about guided selling and
should we move along?
Glorified, filtering system, which really you could already do on the right-hand side anyway. So I never really got into it because every time the customer's like, hey, we want to use guided selling, I'm like, oh, the filters are on the right-hand side.
Guided selling, even going back to CPQ, guided selling, customers use it all the time. It's always in the demo, and they use the phrase. To me, it reminds me of The Princess Bride when it's inconceivable. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. That because customers think it's like this magical forest, and we walk down the trail with this wizard who's going to help you. No, it's a product filter. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. Search filters are technical, tactical filters where if you know the specific data point you want to find, but if you don't know what that data point is, that's where guided selling is more of a functional-based search filter. But both of them just whittle it down. Large transaction support up to 1,000 lines. I was excited to see that. That was a big gap in CPQ. And I imagine, I don't have a safe harbor slide, but I imagine that these sorts of limits will continue to increase as time goes on. And get more
the competition, so Logic made it clear that it wasn't a limit on their new CPQ tool, right? You can have thousands of lines in their CPQ tool. And so we know what they're doing.
Which is a massive need for companies like, it's a massive need for, say, communications companies where I want to buy 10,000 phone numbers or whatever. Transaction line editor groups, quote line groups.
So
I would have thought that would be much earlier in the rollout because it doesn't seem, unless there's some extra functionality baked into it that we didn't have in CPQ.
Well, you can do auto grouping. So if you have an ungrouped quote and you have the product family column on your layout, you can actually click the product family column on your line editor and click group by. And then if you have, 30 products, 10 per product family, it's going to create 3 groups, 1 per product family, and name the groups based on the product family right away, or any other, well, not any other fields. I made a video and a post about it, and there are limits. Not every field can be groupable, but a lot of them can.
Is it kind of like summary reports then, in a sense, where you just say, group by this column?
Somewhat, yeah.
Kind of a thing. You had a little section here, honorable mentions, nested option groups and product bundles, creating custom product browsing experiences and new actions and configuration rules. Any of that you want to touch on?
No, these I guess were smaller stuff that weren't very detailed in the release notes when I read through them. Nested option groups, so you can do nested option grouping. So that's, it's interesting. Group section, as I said in there.
Group section, yeah.
Custom browsing experience. I think this one's going to be interesting because the browsing experience so far, you're kind of limited to that. And I don't know if that actually allows you to skip the catalog selection, but I feel like catalog selection on the add products page is going to be a pain right away on any project, right? It's going to be the first thing. Can we bypass this screen? Yes, I know. That's going to be the first question on every project. So
yeah, I was a little confused about that because I thought, well, what I like to do on the CPQ side of things is if we can determine the price book on the opportunity level, let's just set it there so the user never has to choose it on the quote. We know it's going to be right, all this other stuff, and then we filter. And then I like to use the default value on the add products custom action so they go right into the product selection screen. I would love something very similar because if a user creates a quote, why not immediately take them into the product selection screen, especially if we know that maybe the business has only one product catalog. Well, if you got one price book and you want to have one product catalog, why not kind of treat it like, if you return a guided selling result that has only one record, you bounce right into configuration. It selects it for you because there's only one result. So I think something like that could be cool. I don't know if we'd be able to do that through the APIs and build maybe a custom UI to put on the front end to make that easier.
Yeah. And I think that was true in CPQ as well. There's just a lot of places where you can easily improve the user experience, right? I think one of the first times we had a deeper discussion is when I posted that add product flow action for CPQ, where you can create your quote and add products using the API in CPQ, which saves you a bunch of clicks, right? Because you can just create and add products right away. And I think that's true beyond CPQ and Salesforce, right? There's a lot of places where you end up having to do 10 clicks where I'm like, this action could be done in 2 clicks, right?
Yeah.
I want less time spent working in there.
Try to close down Showtime. It takes you a week.
I was speaking to someone who's probably going to become my business attorney that I use in right before this call, and he was saying there was some law that came out today that essentially says that you have to make a one click unsubscribe from a subscription service. Like this bullshit about we're going to hide it and it's impossible. You submit a case and then that logs an email. Now, why am I talking in an email thread? Let me close my account. I don't want it. Well, we have to verify your account. I'm in the app. How do you not know that what is this?
What you were saying, JM, about like creating a component that's going to create these various records for you with a click or 3. I want that kind of throughout the system. Like anybody who's familiar with Salesforce billing knows that, you have to create like a gazillion records that are all kind of linked to each other.
Yeah.
And they're like junction objects and stuff tying stuff together. And it's tedious.
Yes.
And it just seems, and so RLM is basically all built like that. There's just a ton of record creation. And it just seems like you ought to be able to have a screen where talk about, a guided, like what people think a guided selling experience is like, once your pick list name, what are the pick list values? What are the, and then like click it, and create all those records for you.
Yeah, I created a package, and I know we talked about it at some point, Wayne, and I think I'm going to
that's right, you did.
Publish it early next week. Well, it's not security reviewed, but I'm like going to ask for, beta testing by the community. I'm going to have the community UAT, to reuse your words, Wayne. And the package has a quick product create where the product gets created along with the product selling model option and the price book entry. Then I created on top of that a clone with related for the product as well. So if you've got a bundle, you can clone with related, which we could do in CPQ, right? Not available yet. Mm-hmm. So then it's the cloning quote with related as well, which isn't available. That's in there. And cloning quote line, which you can't do yet, also in the standard transaction editor.
Oh, nice.
And the other one I'm working on, I don't know, Wayne, if you've looked at contract pricing, but contract pricing is you've got a contract price adjustment schedule. Then you need to create your price adjustment tiers. So I also, this one won't be in the first release, but I'm working on something to make that in one screen instead of 25 clicks.
Excellent. No, I
That's
mean,
fantastic.
you just need to keep making these things and you'll make a lot of money.
Oh, 100%. I had back in the CPQ days, I guess you could do this with, say, a visual flow or something like this, but I wanted to call it the bundle builder because building a bundle in CPQ is a pain in the ass. And there's so much of it. For example, my client, they have the bundle structure is basically identical for 20 products. All they need to do is take everything, the features, the options, the constraints, everything, and clone that and put it under a different product record. That's all they want to do. So thankfully, this client, I've been working with them a little over a year. This is the one that I haven't sent an email, no messaging in a year.
What
And
sorcery is this?
he's Trello. It's wild.
Witchcraft.
Consistent, streamlined business processes. We basically treat each card like its own email thread, and that's really all it is. We put the inbox on the board now. So, he's got 6 certifications now. He manufactured his own bundle data for this situation and loaded it into the sandbox himself. I'm
Perfect.
a damn good teacher. Anyway, the bundle builder. If somebody in the industry wants to make that thing, please do it. I'm not the best flow guy in the world. I can make one if I have to.
Well, I have to say that is a nice thing that RLM has done is that, you create a product category.
Yeah, I love that function. That's fantastic. I was using that with a payment processing company to set up their different attributes for when you swipe the credit card, there's usually some sort of nominal fee and a percentage of the transaction. But that's a little bit different for each type of credit card, Amex versus MasterCard or whatever. And then on top of that, sometimes you can edit those and sometimes you can't. So all of these types of ideas is going to be so much faster to build than Revenue Cloud. And they were saying, well, but we want to see how the administration really is. Well, once I had all this stuff up, they're like, well, but change that and change this and change this. Make a new one of these. And I'm going boom, 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 knocking it out like a live administration demo. I like to ride on that wire, We got a few minutes left. If you guys are cool going over a few minutes, I just want to talk briefly on Revenue Cloud careers. What the hell should I do with my career right now? Because I spent since 2016-ish, basically working exclusively on CPQ stuff. And now I got to learn this new product. But how's that going to go? I don't know yet. Logic's already out there. People told me I should have learned that. Do I learn this? I can't learn them all. Becoming an expert in all of these tools is out of the question. Plus, I think Logic requires coding. I'm not a developer yet, so that's a new skill set I would have to do. Oh, what do you guys think about this?
I do think that if you know CPQ, you're not going to forget it. So that's great. You have that.
How could you?
Right? You're going to have whatever career opportunities come along for that.
Mm-hmm.
But then, if you're that admin type of person, definitely RLM is the future. I mean, I can't imagine that CPQ is going to die.
No.
I think CPQ has ridden for how many years now without any meaningful update, and it's been fine, and people are implementing it new.
They're still buying it.
Yeah, they're still buying. They're still gonna. I think and it doesn't make sense for smaller businesses to go into RLM.
CPQ is still the right fit for some companies.
Yeah. So, you can either stay put. You can.
Well, I think it depends on the career stage too.
RLM.
Like we were talking, you're looking to, I think, retire next year or retire-ish next year. We'll say retire-ish. And you got all this body of knowledge in CPQ. How much do you invest in learning the new product versus somebody like myself, where I have, a few more years perhaps. And to me, I don't know that I have as much of an option in that. I think I need to enable myself on this new product. I need to become, and it's useful that there are many concepts and principles that are transferable. The things are called different things. The fields are called different things. There's a more complex and rich data model. However, if you have the core knowledge of CPQ already, why not? I had a person ask as well, should I get the CPQ certification? Absolutely. Why not? It looks great on your resume. It's a damn hard exam. So if you pass it, thumbs up. And it gives you the general conceptions that you need to know and the principles to understand for whatever quote to cash system is in the future. Matt
I think if you understand the process, right, I think there's a big, anyone can be technical, I think, or rather, I feel like more people are technical than people can talk business. And I think that's a big gap in a lot of people's careers. You can't actually have the business discussion, and that's what you're getting paid for, right, John? That's why people are giving you all their money, right? That's because you can talk business.
It's raining over here, yeah.
I mean, but it really is, right? Because if you know all the technical stuff, but we have to hide you in a corner because you can't speak with the customer, you need to be able to talk through that process, right? That quote to cash, and it's going to be different in different verticals. I think getting to know better some verticals if you don't know any yet, right? Just speaking their language, because if you're going to sit in front of a manufacturing customer, you need to, know their language. The same thing happened to me when I started to do some revenue recognition project. You end up in front of the, accountants and finance people, and then, quickly they're going to realize, hey, you can't speak my language, so you better ramp up quickly and be able to talk that language, or they're going to say, he's no good for
moments.
this.
The CFO just asked me a question. I don't know what that acronym means. Something ASC 606. Don't ask me what that is, but I know that I'm supposed to throw that word out there. What about you, Coker?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I come from more of the admin background myself, so I'm more of points and clicks over code, and I'm more of a business-facing individual. So most of my interactions with the client is requirements gathering, documenting those requirements, making sure I understand and know how to communicate it to the developers, or, I can pick up some admin tasks myself if needed. So I think going down more of the RLM route is probably something more of what interests me based on my background and my experience so far in my career in Salesforce. I think there's a lot of opportunities available there in that space, but said, looking at the verticals and what verticals you're working into, you need to know where sales are heading. Like if you're more data driven type sales motions for your clients, I think logic might probably be more of that career path, more technical, more dev heavy. What you want to sell up front and point and click, and it's like pick list values, and you have your pre-configured bundles. But like you said, either way, having that knowledge, regardless of what tool you're using, if you know the process flow and what a good user experience looks like, having those conversations with your customer and designing your system to process in that fashion, and getting alignment with the business on that process. I think both are ample opportunities, and CPQ is not going anywhere. Customers who are migrating from CPQ to RLM,
they still need a CPQ expert.
You're going to have to migrate from CPQ to RLM, literally.
You're going to have somebody who's enough of a CPQ expert to reverse engineer all the crazy shit they've built over the years and customizations, and see how that's going to map into the new product as well.
Exactly. And here's a question. What do you guys think about learning RLM if you don't know CPQ? Like, I don't think I could.
It might be easier in a crawl, walk, run learning to learn CPQ first anyway.
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah.
There you go. Go to my YouTube channel because I got a whole bunch of CPQ videos on there. You can watch them and start learning for free.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if I could sum up the whole career thing, technical skills are important. However, I would argue that the soft skills are more important than that. The business skills. There's some advice the CEO gave to me a long time ago when I was in a role at a small shop in a leadership role. And I said, hey, what advice would you have to a young person in a leadership role at a small company? And he said, understand the mechanics of the business and how those mechanics tie to financial results. So operations and commerce. How does the business sell stuff and make money? all businesses need to sell stuff and make money. If they don't do one of those two things, they're not in business very long. And so if you can understand the principles of how businesses work, you don't need an MBA for this. I have a fucking Bachelor of Music degree in trombone performance, and then I accidented my way into the Salesforce ecosystem. So you do not need an MBA for this. If you have one, great. Matt, you have one. Great. But you don't need one. What you need is the ability to work with people, the ability to help people think through difficult situations and figure out what the best path forward is, and understanding that businesses are always trying to make money and save money. And the difference between the two is profit. If you can help with those three levers, you'll find jobs for a long, long time. And with that, I know we're a little over time. If you like it, leave some comments. Let us know what you think. I want to bring on other people as well in the future. So we'll try to keep this going. Maybe quarterly, we'll do a Revenue Cloud roundtable discussion and keep everybody up to date on what's going on in the ecosystem as we see it, as those boots on the ground implementing this stuff for clients in the real world or our own companies, whatever the case may be. Anything else to add before we head out?
Thanks for having us. Thanks for setting it up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you're saying that, if you like it, comment. It just reminded me of this romance novelist named Barbara Cartland, who I saw interviewed once. And she said, "Oh, I love it when people say, 'I love what you do.' Tell me again. Tell me you love me."
Yes. Tell us how great we are.
Yes.
We will love it.
Positive comments only, please.